Muy buenos días. Esperamos unos segundos para dar tiempo a que en la conexión se vayan incorporando. Muy bien, muy buenos días. Bienvenidos a todos. Antes que nada, quiero aclararles que seguidamente voy a pasar al idioma inglés, porque como fue adelantado, esta conferencia va a ser totalmente en inglés, sin traducción simultánea. Así que espero que eso no sea un problema, seguramente no, porque el inglés de los embajadores es muy claro, así que ya paso seguidamente al inglés. Good morning. It is a great pleasure for me to receive at the Catholic University of Uruguay the highest authorities of the 5 ASEAN embassies with presence in Buenos Aires to carry out the webinar, The Role of the ASEAN in the Post-Pandemic Opportunities for Uruguay, which is held within the framework of the Mercosur ASEAN Chair of UCU and the MAC. I want to remember that the chair was created in July 2016 at UCU, but then was launched at UADE in Argentina, UP8 in Indonesia, UKM in Malaysia, and this year we are opening a new chair in Foreign Trade University in Vietnam. We're very happy for in the next week, we're going to sign that MOU. Today, we are joined by Lintley Lankalale, Ambassador of Philippines and Chair of the ASEAN Committee in Buenos Aires, Niniek Kun Nariati, Ambassador of Indonesia, welcome. Nur Asman Abdul, Ambassador of Malaysia, welcome. Thang Truong, Ambassador of Vietnam, welcome. And Chakrabham Shumari, who is the encargado de negocios of Thailand, but he is in charge of the Embassy of Thailand in Buenos Aires. All the mentioned embassies are concurrent in Uruguay, so they are in charge also of relations with Uruguay. So thank you very much, really, to be here in Montevideo and in Catholic University. Thank you. It's the first time we're having that conversation. That is the first time that we have the 5 ambassadors in Uruguay. So tell you something about the dynamic of the event. No, I will give a few minutes for all the panelists to say some words. We're going to start with the Ambassador of Philippines, that is in charge of the ASEAN Committee in Buenos Aires, and then I will ask some questions. We are going to have a conversation about different issues related with the relation with ASEAN and Uruguay, what is going on with the pandemic in ASEAN, what are best practices of ASEAN that we must take in account for Mercosur and for Uruguay in particular. And then I will open the floor to students that can ask questions, of course, in English to the ambassadors and the people that is by Zoom, and also by YouTube. No, so Ambassador, thank you again for being with us, and I give you the floor for your introduction. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bertasegui, distinguished officials of the University, the Catholic University of Uruguay, members of the Mercosur ASEAN Chamber of Commerce, our dear students. We're very happy that you could join us today, and all those who are participating by Zoom, and other guests, ladies and gentlemen. Buenos dias a todos. That's all my Spanish can say. On behalf of the members of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations Committee in Buenos Aires, or ACBA as we call it, the ambassadors of Indonesia, Malaysia, Vietnam, and my country, the Philippines, and the charge of the Thai embassy, I would like to convey our pleasure for being here with you today. Our special thanks to Dr. Bertasegui for organizing this very important event for our countries, as well as the support that MAC has provided to make this event come to fruition. This is the first time, as Dr. Bertasegui has said, that this event is happening in Uruguay, together with 5 of the ambassadors of the ASEAN countries. We therefore welcome the opportunity to share with you what ASEAN is doing to prepare itself for the post-pandemic future and how Uruguay can benefit from this future. I will provide a general overview of ASEAN's experience, the lessons learned, and the responses to the challenges that the pandemic has brought to the region. My colleagues from ACBA will be very happy to answer any question you might have on any subject about ASEAN and on this topic that we are discussing today. Ladies and gentlemen, the ASEAN region, like most of many countries in the world, has not been spared of the adverse effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. ASEAN countries experienced disruptions in several ways and in different degrees in their health, social, and economic sectors. However, ASEAN's response to the pandemic offers useful lessons on how to deal effectively with common challenges confronting our region. Let me outline a few of these lessons. Firstly, the pandemic highlighted the importance of maintaining close cooperation among ASEAN governments to accelerate the implementation of ASEAN programs. Secondly, the pandemic provided an opportunity for ASEAN to strengthen its mechanisms to ensure timely and appropriate responses to similar crises in the future. The pandemic has shown some weaknesses internally in the ASEAN structure and mechanisms, and this was a good opportunity for them to review these mechanisms so that they can respond quickly to similar crises in the future. And several initiatives were taken for this purpose. ASEAN established a comprehensive recovery framework in 2020 that serves as the way out of the crisis and towards its recovery. It outlines 5 broad strategies that will ensure the region's resiliency in the post-pandemic period. ASEAN also established for this purpose the ASEAN COVID-19 Response Fund, the ASEAN Regional Reserve of Medical Supplies for Public Health Emergencies, Mitigation of Biological Threats Program, ASEAN Vaccine Security and Health Reliance, and the ASEAN Public Health Emergency Coordination System. So as you will see, we are working together in a coordinated manner to respond, not as individual countries, but together we are working to move towards a better post-pandemic future. Thirdly, the pandemic highlighted the importance of closer multilateral cooperation in addressing and recovering from the impacts of the pandemic, especially in the equitable distribution of vaccines, as well as research and development of vaccines and enhancing public health capacity. And this was emphasized during the recent ASEAN summit meeting in October. Fourthly, ASEAN adopted the Hanoi Plan of Action to maintain the supply chain and connectivity in the midst of the pandemic and pave the way for its rapid economic recovery. Fifthly, the pandemic brought about the widespread use of work and study from home arrangements, which all of you are still experiencing. So the increased reliance on digital technologies within ASEAN highlighted the importance of information and communication technologies and ASEAN's digital transformation. ASEAN undertook regional policy initiatives to build on this trend and is developing a consolidated strategy for the 4th industrial revolution. So while addressing the challenges brought about by the pandemic, ASEAN continued to move forward with its ambitious economic agenda. Recently, in November 2020, it completed the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, or as we call it, RCEP, and signed by 10 ASEAN member countries and 5 dialogue partners. And RCEP is expected to come into effect with the ratification in early next year, I think with only one signatory required. So this is one avenue or tool which Uruguay and Mercosur might look into because it is happening very fast. As you know, it is the biggest regional free trade agreement to date. So it will do well for you to look at this closely. Drawing on ASEAN's experiences and lessons learned from the pandemic and our requirements for recovery, new areas of mutually beneficial cooperation between ASEAN on one hand and Uruguay and Mercosur on the other. And these would include exchange of technical know-how in health sector, and developing supply arrangements in the pharmaceutical industry, including vaccines, therapeutics, personal protective equipment, medical devices, and supplies. And look at ASEAN as a vast market for these goods and services. We have 600 million population altogether. So you can see the immense possibility for you coming to the region. So industries that will likely be given greater focus in the post-pandemic future are infrastructure in information and communications technologies, climate-friendly technologies, renewable energy, agriculture, and the environment. These areas clearly go beyond the traditional trading in commodities. And I think Uruguay, where it is positioned now, is best to look at it in this direction, in addition to your traditional trading practices. So ladies and gentlemen, it is customary for countries to look inwards when responding to internal and external challenges. This approach may no longer be viable, as the crisis has shown, and as our region has shown. In an interdependent and interconnected world, we all have to look beyond our borders. It is by broadening and intensifying cooperation with partners outside the region can we accelerate economic recovery and development for all parties involved. I believe that this is the rationale for Uruguay and Mercosur to look closely at what partnerships and cooperation ASEAN can offer. Based on the business and economic thrust of Uruguay, we see great potential in complementarities with ASEAN. And looking to the future, ASEAN will certainly play a major role as an engine of growth in the global economy, given the size of its market, which I have mentioned is 600 million people, a growing middle class, and steadily rising income. The internal cohesion within ASEAN will also be an important factor in the future. And within the region itself, it is still the preeminent mechanism for cooperation and coordinated and coherent responses to both regional and global challenges. As such, ASEAN will remain a zone of peace, stability, and prosperity in the region. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador, for that very important introduction. Maybe, I don't know if some other ambassador want to go to say something about the perspective of the country in COVID-19, identifying the principal change because of COVID, before going through other questions about the relations between Uruguay and ASEAN, maybe something more about the pandemic. Indonesia?
Thank you. Very good morning to all of you. I'm happy to be here among a young generation and my best colleague here. I just want to provoke a question and discussion later by talking about what Indonesia is in the situation. You know, Indonesia is the largest in terms of one, population, largest country in terms of size and economy. So you can imagine among ASEAN, Indonesia is always the largest. Okay. And the second one, Indonesia also founding fathers of ASEAN. What does it mean for Indonesia? It means that ASEAN is the cornerstone foreign policy of Indonesia. Without ASEAN, Indonesia will not have the strength to move further. So we have to nurture the ASEAN. That's the foreign policy of Indonesia. The third, pandemic. Where pandemic hits Indonesia, it's just like other countries. But when you see the size of Indonesia, Indonesia consists of 17,000 islands. So we face logistic to distribute vaccine, to distribute, also paramedic, medicine, all the equipment to face this pandemic. We also have 270 million people. how can you provide vaccine for those people? This is the great challenge that Indonesia faces during the pandemic. Okay, and also last but not least is mentality. Some people, many people believe that pandemic is a, creation of the Western country, and they don't want to be vaccinated. This is always, I believe other countries also face this challenge, but we have 200 million people. So this is a challenge by Indonesia, but we continue support regionalism and multilateralism to overcome all the challenges that we face by pandemic. Ambassador Ling Lingle has been mentioned regarding ASEAN response to the pandemic. We have a framework, we have a plan of action, we follow that plan of action, we work together with other ASEAN countries, and we also, as a chair of the G20 right now, find to develop a global infrastructure of finance and also health, global health. Foreign Minister has been the forefront of diplomacy. In Indonesia right now, we are having a new concept, what we call it health diplomacy or vaccine diplomacy. You can see how difficult country get the vaccine, because vaccine becoming a commodity, very scarce. So we have to do all the effort to convince not only the developed country get the vaccine because they are more affluent, they are more rich to get the vaccine, but developing country and less developed country has to be able to get the vaccine itself. So Indonesia come forward as the vice chair of the COVAX mechanism. This is how Indonesia contribute to the world to make sure that not only developed country get the vaccine, but also developing country. I hope my introduction on Indonesia and what we are facing during the pandemic will provoke discussion later on. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. Vietnam, your first words, please.
Good morning, everybody. I'd like to share also a few words about Vietnam, its relation with Uruguay, and how we see that the pandemic can be a stimulus for stronger relation between the two regions in general and our two countries in particular. I think that for Vietnam, the COVID had very severe impact, and it's also, like with other countries, show the resilience of the country, how the people, how the provincial government, the central government cope with the COVID. In 2020, we had very little, but in 2021, we had a lot. So it's like everywhere in the world, it's spreading until we have a large portion of the population is being vaccinated, but we are still developing, and we see our strength and weakness more. And one of the strengths we see that Vietnam is a very open country in terms of trade. The total trade is twice as much as the GDP. GDP of Vietnam is $250 billion US, and the trade is $500 billion US a year. So with that kind of openness, when the pandemic struck, we had a lot of support, international support from our friendly country, ASEAN, or other country, not only because of friendly relation, but because they have a lot of interest not to let Vietnam disrupt the supply chain. So the US, Japan, China, a lot of countries which invest in Vietnam, they also the country supported most with the vaccine. So we are now having the first dose for almost 100 million population, and we are recovering from that. So that's one lesson of the openness. Openness is very important. It has a risk, but also has opportunity. But once you are plunged into the world, you will have someone to have you in time of difficulty. And I think it has something to do with the Mercosur country. you are still you're feeling very comfortable with your domestic substitution industry, and we have a lot of natural resource, and there's not much pressure to open up because you are okay with yourselves. But now the world's changing very fast, especially for young people, and you are not changing fast enough. You are lagging behind, and until the time that the natural endowment is not enough for you to have a decent life. So my suggestion that you should also open up, of course, depending on your specific condition, but open up, I think, is the way to go in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. Thank you. Malaysia.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And first of all, I would like to thanks to the organizer, UCU, for organizing this very important event. For us, this is a good platform for all of us here to know Mercosur, your region, your country, as well as for you to know our countries and also our region. And it is an honor for me to be here because I always like to engage with students because I also always feel young when I engage with students. So it's such a pleasure for me to be here, apart from introducing my country, Malaysia. As mentioned by my colleagues just now, Ambassador Ling and Ambassador Nini, also Mr. Tan, ASEAN is a very unique organization. In fact, for us, this pandemic is a blessing in disguise because it gives us some sort of soul searching and also to reset the world actually. And with this pandemic, for us, we are more working together. We look into this threat, also the opportunity for us to review, to strengthen, and to look forward what mechanism that we can do to strengthen our cooperation in ASEAN. I know that not many of you knows about ASEAN. Actually, ASEAN is an organization that very unique because we are the organization that the decision making is based on consensus. Meaning to say, if we have an issue, we need to have a consensus, 100% agree. Or if we not agree, we have to agree to not to disagree. So this is something that is very unique about ASEAN. So I think this is the only organization in the world that have this kind of decision-making process. So back to this pandemic, for Malaysia, for us, economy is very important because Malaysia is a trading nation. In terms of ease of doing business, we are ranked number 12 in the world and number 2 in ASEAN. We welcome our investors, and in fact, during the pandemic, our Prime Minister has proposed for this ASEAN Comprehensive Partnership, ACRF regional framework, which is for us to focus what we have to do in terms of this post-pandemic. Number one of the initiatives that we propose is to maintain or to retain our supply chain connectivity, which is very, very important for us to remain trading the businesses to continue to be operated. That's number one. And also, we also, under the ACRF, Indonesia has proposed this ASEAN Travel Corridor Framework for us to have this bubble travel to ensure that essential businessmen can be doing their activities during the pandemic. And a lot of things that under this ASEAN framework, which is we can discuss afterward. And I look forward to have a more Q&A question, and feel free to visit Malaysia because Malaysia is truly Asia. To know Malaysia is to love Malaysia. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, what about Thailand?
Okay, thank you so much. How many persons here in this room have been to Thailand before? Oh, it's quite, more than expected. So, since the relationship between Thailand and Uruguay is still very young, we have the first diplomatic relationship on 76. It's been only 45 years, but you know, we are very well known about Uruguay regarding about soccer or medic as well. This is the thing that my first question. I'm surprised. I'm very happy that I can be the representative of Thailand to be here. You know, and also, okay, regarding the pandemic things, I have to add some word about the in the framework of ASEAN. We try a lot of the projects during the ASEAN Summit, as the Ambassador Ling and also Ambassador Malaysia also mentioned about these things. It's mean that we have a CRF, COVID ASEAN Response Fund, is work very well, and then we try to, and also we initiate to buy the vaccine for the member countries of ASEAN.
Together.
Yes, together. This is also a very good initiative also. And also we also have the ASEAN Travel Corridor arrangement that this will be facilitate the businessmen, you know, to travel. The first, like a first, what you call the trial, right? And then we open for the normal tourists in the future. Hopefully this is very good. And also we have the digital ASEAN during the last summit on the ASEAN Summit on 38th. It's also we will facilitate and to utilize more digital technology during the COVID. Most of the country will be what you can call, we cannot cross the border, we will be blocked by physically, but we have to interact because we are human. And we love to interact, everyone, as you know, that we have to interact, and we have, our life has to go on. And that's why we develop a lot in the digital technology. And also the ASEAN also would like to push on what they call, put the strength in the digital economy. And we are very strong in ASEAN as well. For the digital, you know, the content, digital, and connectivity also really good. Yeah, for example, the infrastructure of the internet as well is very, very, very good in ASEAN. And for the point of the Thailand about regarding the pandemic, we try to, first of all, our policy, firstly, we try to close the border, you know, to contain the numbers of the infectors. But lately we changed the policy to find more vaccination. And also we are one of the what's called place that have the factory of AstraZeneca in the world, we have world factory to distribute to the region as well. And this that was done by the Siam Bioscience. And also apart from this, we also now is from the 1st of November we start to receiving back the tourists who vaccinated. Now 69 countries are allowed to go to Thailand, and hopefully Uruguay and Argentina or in Latin America very soon will be open for the vaccinated tourists to visit Thailand again, because I just have my friend just told me internally, but now only Chile just allowed to travel to Thailand without only vaccinated, without, otherwise you have to get the quarantine, for example. And also, well, hopefully that in the, we have many things to learn during the COVID, you know, how to organize and how to minimize what we have the resources in the country because we cannot travel out. So one part is that for the digital content, you know, we develop a lot about government to during these 2 years, you know, to facilitate how to register the people, how to we have a plan for what we call big data plan to try to utilize all the government the information together. This is one of the Thailand we are pushing for the things that we try to develop or what we call the digital government. This is one of part of our plan as well. And also we are welcome for the investors, especially for the technicians and indeed, for example, in the scientists, and also with the digital, what we call this IT, to stay in Thailand, you know, and have the right special what we call. We have a special places called EZ, that for like a free trade zone for investor, and also we are welcome the skilled workers to stay in Thailand and for the long-term visa. It's our plan. So thank you.
Okay, no, thank you. So that's a very good start. So maybe we can go through the economic and trade relations with the region. So I think that you agree with me that the potential of our relations are really far away, in particular with Latin American, but also with Mercosur and Uruguay more. So what is the next step from your point of view? The next steps we can go through to deepen the relations between ASEAN and Mercosur. How we can do?
Can I? Sorry, Madam Chair. Well, as Madam Chair mentioned that during the pandemic, November 2020, ASEAN has able to sign what we call it Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. It is 15 countries, 10 ASEAN countries and 5 dialogue partners. This Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership is a market of more than how many billion? 2 billions.
Yes.
2 billions population. And it allows a free trade between these 15 countries. And all the tariff will be reduced within this population, countries. What else? The rules of origin will be simpler. Now, what Uruguay can use of this RCEP? Simply invest in one of these ASEAN country, and your goods will be able to be traded around. That's the first step. Look at Asia. Look at your investment in ASEAN. That's the first step. For instance, in Indonesia itself, I have to promote my country, of course. I'm sorry, Madam Chair. Indonesia recently just have a new law, what we call it omnibus law for job creation. This simplifies all the rules and regulation in investment in Indonesia because we are lagging behind Malaysia, Vietnam. Doesn't matter, we can catch up, right? We have to see to what you call it to learn from the one who already in advance and learn what can be done in ourselves, in our country. So we come up with this omnibus law that will simplify all the rules and regulation for foreign investors in Indonesia. For instance, land acquisition, time to open up a business in Indonesia, it's all reduced. So by doing this, we hope that the industry that is located in country that is hit badly by pandemic, for instance, in China, they can be relocated to Indonesia, like has already been done successfully by Vietnam and Malaysia. We want to follow their step. Why not? We are not competing. We have to work together. So this is the first step that Uruguay can do with ASEAN. So use the RCEP because RCEP will be implemented 1st January 2022. It's next year, only a couple, maybe 2 months, less than 2 months. That's my answer.
Thank you, Ambassador. Yes, only to remember RCP, it's called in Spanish RCEP, it's mega bloque. So, Ambassador.
Thank you. I just want to chip in what Ambassador Indonesia, Ambassador Nini just mentioned just now. I like to talk on the regional itself, the Mercosur and also ASEAN, and also, of course, Uruguay. We have to admit that the engagement between our region and also our country is very, very minimal. Why I'm saying this? Because we have to look in the history of connection between Mercosur and ASEAN. The first engagement was in 2008. That was the first engagement. It was held in Brazil, 2008. But after that, the second meeting, it was stopped for 9 years. And the second meeting was 2017. So there was a huge gap between 9 years is very long. So the first thing that I would like to propose to Mercosur and also for ASEAN, for Uruguay, is to enhance our connection, our connectivity, our engagement. How to do that? First, the ambassador of Mercosur that representing in Jakarta to communicate with ASEAN permanent rep in Jakarta. So that is the first engagement we should do, because one, you continue to start your negotiation, start the dialogue, we can plan for our plan of action. For example, what is the framework, what is our headings to it, what we're going to do in the future. That's number one. Number two, Uruguay should take the advantage to be the Mercosur secretary is in Montevideo. So we also have proposed, the ASEAN Secretary have proposed the information paper for the Mercosur Secretariat to engage with ASEAN Secretary in Jakarta to close the gap. That's the number two solution. And number three solution we would like to propose is to institutionalize the meeting between the two countries, the two regions, because now it's whether on and off, whether it's sideline meeting, it's other sometimes it's no meeting at all. Why not we institutionalize it? The engagement to be held maybe every year, every quarter, so that we can update each other, we can explore new things together, because there's a huge potential here. There's huge potential in terms of tourism, in terms of agricultural products, a lot of things. And in fact, I fall in love with the first sight in Uruguay when I first touched down in your beautiful country. This is so beautiful. The beach is so nice, and the people is so kind and humble. So a lot of things that we can do together. But first step, we need to engage more. We want to work closely. So this is a three things that I think we should enhance it. Engagement, dialogue, so that, and make it institutionalized, so that both regions can be connected and keep it engaged continuously. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. Vietnam, Philippines, Thailand, something to say? Vietnam, it's one thing happening because from Mercosur, we're talking about maybe the possibility to open a free trade agreement with Vietnam or Indonesia. So Vietnam is in the focus of Mercosur agenda. Nothing happens at the moment, but we are thinking in that. What do you think? Do you think it's possible to start negotiations between Vietnam and Mercosur if something happens, or is not available that position? And also one question to Ambassador of Indonesia about, it's interested to receive Mercosur and other countries, because at the moment it's only a regional agreement, no? So.
I have two comments. First, about Vietnam negotiation with Mercosur. We already sent a proposal to the Mercosur, and this have been received February in Brazil, Uruguay, Paraguay. And Argentina has some reservation. That's why it's still getting, I think, almost like a Indonesia case. But I hope that it will get along because of the benefit of both sides. And another thing about Mercosur, the setting up of the Mercosur chair in Vietnam, as you mentioned, very soon, right? In the Foreign Trade University, one of the most prestigious business university in Vietnam. And the important thing of that is that it's alumni now CEO of a very big company in Vietnam. And with the Mercosur chair, you can utilize this alumni network to promote trade, investment, and exchange with Uruguay and Vietnam. And I think that I very welcome that. I work with the Foreign Trade University, and I promoted it also very much. And I think this would be a good bridge, the first bridge, and it's very important, as Ambassador has done, it's the connectivity. And connectivity first is among people. Although we have a Zoom, we have a lot of other technology platform, but it's still, at the end of the day, it's the personal contact that is very important. So I I very much welcome your initiative and the success of setting up a Mercosur chair in University of Foreign Trade in Vietnam.
Okay, thank you. Well, as for Indonesia, the ball now is in Mercosur. We already sent the final draft for a comprehensive economic partnership between Indonesia and Mercosur. So we are waiting a response of Mercosur. Are you ready to embark on the negotiation? Because Indonesia is ready. We are not going to have a negotiation individually, Indonesia with individual country of Mercosur, but as a group. Why? Because we see that as a group, it's more important than individual country. That's first. And secondly, with the group, you can use this SEPA, Indonesia Mercosur, to enter RCEP market later on. So the ball is in your hand.
Okay, it's clear, really clear. So I think that Mercosur needs reaction, no? So what about Uruguay, Ambassador? How we can, what is the program to deepen the relation with Uruguay? What are the spaces? You were talking about that we need dialogues, permanent dialogue with Mercosur, but with Uruguay, we can do more because now it's a small country, but in a post-pandemic situation, I think that we have a role there in international terms. So what we can do with Uruguay, ASEAN with Uruguay, or in a bilateral way also with different countries of ASEAN with Uruguay? What are the spaces? What are the sectors where we can go through? What do you think?
Actually, there are many avenues within ASEAN that Uruguay can make use of. First of all, you might consider being a party to the Treaty of Amity and Cooperation. This is very basic to all our partners outside the region because this means that you support our main objective of keeping peace and stability in the region.
Chile is there, I think. Chile,
yes, Chile and Argentina was the last one. And so I think it's, Brazil is also. So I think Uruguay should look at it. And then there was also mentioned already that you have to be fully represented in the ASEAN. Paraguay still hasn't presented their credentials to the ASEAN Secretariat so that you can be represented as a group in what we call the permanent, the committee of permanent representatives, and that is where they discuss, our relations with third parties. So that is very essential. Your group becomes stronger when you are fully represented in the ASEAN. Now there are also other forums within ASEAN which you can take advantage of, even on a bilateral basis, whether it's cultural, economic. And as we had mentioned earlier, getting to know each other is very basic in any relation. You don't go out there, especially we have different cultures. So it's this two-culture meeting that requires more adjustment. And of course, I will speak about the Philippines because among the ASEAN countries, we are the ones that's closest to the Latin American region because of our colonial heritage. And if you go to the Philippines, you will see that it is easy to communicate with the people. But by nature, the ASEAN people have a different way. I'm not saying our values are better than yours, but you know that when you go there, you're easily welcome. You feel that you are part of us. And it makes dealing with your counterparts easier, whether it's in the business world or in education, in all fronts. I think you will find this a very welcome environment for anybody who would like to push the relations with that region.
Thank you. Thailand, you want to say something more about it? Uruguay opportunities?
Yes, I would like to add up something with Ambassador Ling had said, because to strengthen, for me, my point of view, because I deal with the scholarship as well, apart from this, the normal the management job in the embassy. And normally all the ASEAN country, I can say, we're offering the scholarship from the government for scholarship. And then for example, for Thailand, we have the AITC, what we call annual international training corporation, to give the scholarship to the foreign students. And luckily, Uruguay has applied a lot, compared to Argentina as well. It's very interesting. And then we are happy that we have around 4 or 5 Uruguayan go to Thailand to study about the agricultural tourists. It is very good. And when those of them will come back, I think you can make use of those people, to know what can you go with the Thailand, what is the Thai market. And also, I think that most of the country of the ASEAN, even though we have some differences, but we share the same value. But on the part of the differences, you can make use of what each of the country have a strength in. For example, Thailand, we are strong in the financial system. Since we have the crisis on 1997, and after that we have a reform all the banking system. And you can see that we have only 1.5% per year for the inflation. And the stability of the exchange rate, for example, dollar is not nearly 30 baht per dollar or 22, 25, like this one for nearly 20 years, even now. For example, for this part, we have a strong, for example, for the financial sector, we can do more cooperation and more investors to go to Uruguay, for example. And even Malaysia, Philippines, they have their own restaurant, for example, we have, for example, Malaysia, you're very good in petrol sector or energy sector, for example. This is the thing that if Uruguay want to be join with ASEAN, you can learn from us which are the best part of the ASEAN. You can take a role and you can join with this.
Yes.
Just one more. What Uruguay can do to reap the benefit for the post-pandemic, is open up your tourism sector for ASEAN affluent people to enjoy your beauty here. How? Give us a free visa facility that you already enjoy from a lot of us. A lot of ASEAN countries already give you visa facility free for 2 months to visit us. But you have to reciprocate to be able to benefit from the post-pandemic. Because many people now are sick of contained in their home and we want to travel. This is a pragmatic way to reap the benefit from ASEAN.
We call this in Spanish, estamos recibiendo muchos retos de los pendientes, ¿no? And that is part of what we have to work with the foreign minister and with the authorities in Uruguay. Surely, it's important. I want to return to something more general that is now in discussion, debate in Uruguay. This is about, that we're talking, I don't know if you're from Buenos Aires, I think that you're being in touch about Uruguay agenda, and we are having a conversation very strong with China. And we're talking a lot about China here. And also in Uruguay, like in other places around the world, China-US conflict, it's part of our problems. So we want to know, how is the perspective of ASEAN between the relations with China and the US? Because both countries are important for you. And for the future, if we talk about Asia-Pacific or Indo-Pacific or Indonesia plans in the future, also is important. So how are you managing this, that for us is now in the newspapers every day? Okay. And then we're going to pass to some questions for public. Students, prepare questions in English, please.
Okay. This is a question that always asked to me, and I always been asked to answer this question. Very tough question, actually. But there's no Chinese embassy here from here. It's okay. No. All right. To answer your question, Mr. Chair, ASEAN, we have developed our ASEAN outlook on Indo-Pacific. They call it AOIP. The AOIP is a framework that is agreed by all ASEAN countries as a guideline for our dialogue partners to cooperate with ASEAN as a whole. Okay, under AOIP, there are four category. First, we focus on maritime cooperation. Number 2, on economic cooperation. Number 3, on SDG. And number 4, can't remember number 4, sustainability. So this is the 4 areas of cooperation that we would like our dialogue partners to follow as a guidelines in the region. Yeah, especially South China Sea. Okay, all right. And yes, of course, AOIP is developed. It's to strike a balance between China and also US. And of course, there is reason why we develop our own version of Indo-Pacific. We have so many versions from US. We have the Indo-Pacific. Japan have their own school of thought on Indo-Pacific. And recently, AUKUS, AUKUS, also came to the picture. So we maintain our AOIP as a standard guideline to all countries around the world how to approach ASEAN for in terms of the geopolitical aspect. That's number 1. Number 2, if you were aware, during the beginning of ASEAN, we already have this principle called ZOFAN, which is Zone of Peace, Freedom and Neutrality, which is mean that we are not kept aside. We remain neutral. Whether you're China or whether you're Russia or whether you are United States, so we are neutral. We remain neutral. So this is a principle that we have established during our establishment in 1967. ZOFAN, Zone of Peace, Freedom and Neutrality. That's number 2. And number 3, we also recognize this universal recognized principle of universal recognized principle of international law, including United Nations Law of the Sea 1982. So all of ASEAN countries are members of UNCLOS. So we would like to maintain the South China Sea and we would like to maintain the peacefulness in terms of prosperity, and also we would like to pursue engagement and dialogue and to avoid conflict. So this is a principle that we always uphold. And also we are in the midst of finalizing this 2002 Declaration of Conduct of Parties on South China Sea, and for us to develop the single South China Sea so-called framework. They call it COC. It's very technical things that I don't know how to elaborate. I'm not a maritime expert on this, but this is things that we have the tools in place to avoid conflict. So again, ASEAN, we would like to remain neutral, and we uphold the principle of ZOFAN, Zone of Peace, Freedom and Neutrality in our region. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor. Yes, of course.
I hope I don't say anything controversial here.
No.
Well, as you know, the Philippines was the one that brought the arbitral case against China and to challenge its claim that it owns this 9-dash line, which includes the whole of the China Sea, South China Sea. And of course, there are overlapping claimants. Malaysia, Philippines, Vietnam have claims over part of the South China Sea. And we're especially in a strategic point because that is where international trade moves. A large percentage of international trade goes through this body of water. So being a party to the UNCLOS, the UN Law of the Sea, we felt that it was time for us to really put our position across and to get a decision or an opinion from the arbitral commission, a court, to say to verify this this claim of China. Now, I am speaking only on behalf of the Philippines. I'm not speaking on behalf of ASEAN. So we have responded in different ways to the issue with China. But basically, this is what we do not want to interfere in the relationship, in the complications of relationship between China and the United States. But the China vis-a-vis the Philippines is another matter. We have consistently seen the presence of China in our waters, which we now call the West Philippine Sea, because that is the area that we claim. But China was not a participant to the hearings in the International Tribunal, but it awarded to the Philippines and confirmed or reaffirmed that we have rights on our EEZ. So this, which China does not want to recognize up to now. So what have we been doing to address that? Every time they bring a militia of vessels, in the past, we have been very diplomatic. And we continue to be very diplomatic because we believe that China is such a big country. We do not have the military might to confront China in a physical war in that part of the world, and it will also destabilize the region if we do that. So we have been filing diplomatic protests every time there is an incursion in our area. We have also sent our own Navy, and that's why we need to beef up our defenses also, maritime defenses. But this is what we've been doing, and we've been talking to the Chinese government constantly about this issue. But of course, we're also very realistic that we will not be able to. China has a 100-year plan, and they have been very patient, and so we feel that we have to be realistic also in our expectations. So we are using diplomatic means and discussions with the government of China to see how we can address the situation. And ASEAN has already started talking about this issue. In the beginning, because we have different degrees of relationship with China, of course, we did not want to touch on that, but we're very happy that now it is being discussed. Not to side with any particular country, but with, of course, our national interest also and the interests of the region, we have known our parameters. So whatever action we do will probably, hopefully, with ASEAN, and we will maintain our position of neutrality as far as we can, but also to assert in different ways our sovereignty over the island that is under dispute. That is. Would you like?
Yes.
I just want to add a little thing to give a picture. Now the confrontation between US and China is a global issue. It affects every country in the world. So the point that whether we take an active attitude or passive attitude, because if you think that we are weak, there's nothing we can do. We just watch it evolve. And we have also been evolved in that because it's like a magnetic that will attract you to the rivalry. So I think it's a better way, like ASEAN is doing now, is to be active. We state our policy very clearly. We want to keep a balance, fine balance between China and US, but we have our interest to defend, and those who support our interest is our friend as well. So we don't have a permanent friend or permanent enemy, but we have a permanent interest. So we should be active, and we should work, I think, in a regional framework, because the weak country, when they are together, the voice becomes stronger. And I think that's the lesson that Latin America should also learn, because now the US is coming back to Latin America very strongly, and they will have pressure on you, like 5G technology and all other things we are doing with China. So you have a clear policy and you stay out of the conflict, it will be in your interest.
Thank you. That was a very difficult questions and very clear responses. No, so thank you for that. Really. So I want to open the floor to our students firstly, and then people that is by Zoom and YouTube. One student that wanted to ask a question. Yeah. Okay.
Ahí se escucha, ¿no? Well, as you know, here in Mercosur, we have a hard time reaching agreements and reaching consensus, and we're only 4 countries, and well, the ASEAN are 15 countries in total, so I would like to take some advice from you on how to reach agreements.
Oh, okay. 10 countries, no 15. Okay.
Okay.
10. So advices the student. Okay.
First, ASEAN principle is non-interference of domestic issues. We always adhere and appreciate other countries' decision without interference, anything. That's first and foremost. And second, maybe if I'm not mistaken, it's just humanity. You know, if one country have difficulties and find in crisis, other country has to come up. Okay. And the third one, ASEAN has what we call it ASEAN minus. ASEAN minus is if we cannot agree in one thing, then we stated, so this decision is ASEAN minus. That's my short answer to you. Maybe my other colleague can add more to this. He's the former DG of ASEAN in Malaysia, so he knows more.
Okay, to answer your question, for me, first of all, we need to have a very strong political will. When ASEAN was founded by our 5 founding fathers in 1967 in Bangkok, we have these commonalities and similarities between 5 of us. So that is the reason why we have this common understanding on how to tackle our issues. Because if you look like the history of ASEAN, it was established during the conflict of during the Cold War. During this, at that time, the world was so terrible, was so in mess. So this reason why the SOFAN is formulated, and because of the strong political will, I think this is the most important thing. And the rest, as mentioned by Ambassador Nick just now, we have the ASEAN Minus X. For example, recently we had a meeting on the Myanmar issue. For the first time, we are not invited Myanmar. So this is something that we, as I mentioned, we work on consensus, but we also have to agree to disagree. And plus the principle of ASEAN Minus X. So the first time in history that we didn't invite our Myanmar colleague because of this Myanmar issue. Having said that, as mentioned by rightly mentioned by Ambassador Nini just now, we also request or offer for the humanitarian assistance to Myanmar. But unfortunately, the agreed on 5-point consensus was not taken fully taken by our Myanmar colleagues. So that's the reason why we have to make a drastic action. Actually, this is not drastic action, but this is a decision has been made. We follow the step by step on ASEAN way. We follow first step, second step, third step. We persuade Myanmar. We engage with Myanmar. In fact, we offer our special envoy to make the assessment on the situation in Myanmar. But unfortunately, the special envoy is not be able to enter Myanmar to look what happened on the ground. So this is the reason why the leaders has made a decision for not to invite Myanmar for this recent summit. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, more questions? Maria? Other students?
We have a question in Zoom.
And then one by Zoom.
Hello. How we can change the fact that there is a lack of knowledge in the Uruguayan or Asian entrepreneurs and decision makers that affect the two markets in commerce?
Since thank you so much for this question. So since Thailand, not Thailand, ASEAN and Uruguay is very far for the distance. So it's a basic I can to tell you to make use of the digital technology. The first thing. Second thing, okay, when we have a chance to go back to the tourist, what we call it, the tourist situation of COVID is much better than now. The physical exchanges also really required. I think that, for example, for your young generation, you should visit Thailand more, or not Thailand, in ASEAN and Thailand and our region more as well. It's mean that the only way to know how the people in that country think, you should just stay there and living there and have more interactive. For now, okay, you have two ways, or for the physical one or the virtual one, we have both. We have a chance now. The world is closer because since we have a kind of pandemic and we develop a lot about technology. So I encourage you to visit ASEAN and to know more. This is only one thing, and we can have more engagement between those regions and Latin America and ASEAN. Thank you.
Thank you. Maria, you have a question from...
We have a question in Zoom. Okay, which other countries could we potentially be ASEAN allies in LATAM, and which will be their respective roles in this process?
Which other countries could potentially be ASEAN's allies in LATAM, in Latin America, and which would be their respective roles in this process? Not only Mercosur, but if you need to identify other allies in Latin America, it's Mexico, it's Colombia, it's Pacific Alliance. That was an example.
I made chair. Well, at this point, we started by saying that we do not know much about each other. And therefore, to identify a particular country or ally would be difficult at this point. It depends on what you mean by ally. Would it be economic ally, political ally? There are many partners. So there are many kinds of a relationship that we could have. But what we want to do in the beginning is just tell you more about who we are as a people, what we can offer you, what kind of what opportunities you can see. And this is also what we want from Latin America. And there we will see where the complementarities are and where we can establish stronger allies depending on the opportunities that arise and depending also on the interests of your people with respect to our people and vice versa.
Yes?
Well, you should look at Chile in Latin America. Chile will have, and now in the process of having a free trade agreement with ASEAN, New Zealand, and Australia. You can see if Chile already have this free trade agreement with this region, what will be happening in Chile? The economic will be booming. The situation in Chile will be improving. So what left for Mercosur or Uruguay? So to answer this question is, other country is already in advance in Latin America in connection with ASEAN is Chile.
If I may to chip in, for us, I think ASEAN is friendly to everyone. The Latin America, we are welcome all Latin America to engage with ASEAN as long as you respect our Treaty Amity and Cooperation (TAC). So most or every country in Latin America or every country in the world are most welcome to join ASEAN. And as mentioned by Ambassador Nini, yes, Chile is quite active. They are, at the moment, Chile is the development partners of ASEAN. So we hope that Uruguay can become at least sectoral partner of ASEAN in the near future, because you have a lot of advantage. Become the Mercosur of Secretariat in Montevideo is very good advantage of it.
We will push for that. Another question?
It's a pleasure, ambassadors. So my question is regarding to it's actually a question to the Indonesian ambassador regarding the halal meat. So we as an agrarian industry, as an agrarian country, have a lot of interest in selling our products as meat in a more expensive price. So how have we lost an opportunity to sell to your country, to maybe, I don't know, Malaysia or Brunei or wherever? Are we losing an opportunity in that market, or do we still have time to? Yeah.
Thank you for the question. It's very timely for Uruguay to think about this, because halal is not only applied for meat. Halal is applied to any product that consists of involve the other animals in it. It can apply to pharmaceutical. It can apply to the cosmetic, anything, not only meat, and dairies product also. So what we do now in not only in Indonesia, I believe in Malaysia, in all other countries that Muslim population majority, we only adhere to the halal certification for any product that we are consuming. Okay. Now, if you want to benefit from this market, for instance, Indonesia is around 200 million Muslim. In Malaysia, how many? 60 million, right? 30 million. So if you want to benefit from this market, you have to increase or upgrade your process in doing business in a halal way. Yesterday, I met we met with the foreign minister. We mentioned about this. Now in Indonesia, the process is simpler now. Before it's a very lengthy process. We have to come here, inspect, and do the many things here to make sure that this halal process has already been done in this country. But now it's only recognize the process, the documentation, because it's already internationalized certification for halal. So, but I understand that in Uruguay, you don't have an institution that certified halal product. So the first step, you have to establish this institution. Maybe we can have a cooperation with Indonesia and Malaysia to help you to establish this institution first. Then we can embark on the signing of MOU between the two countries or with Malaysia as well. Okay.
Okay, thank you. About halal, I think I have to answer as well, because this is involve my country. I like to answer this question because I like to eat asado. This is my favorite question actually. So talking about halal, yes, I this morning I had a meeting with Uruguay 21. So we are exploring to have our halal certification team to come to Uruguay to establish the regulatory body here, because there's no dedicated organization that oversee the halal process. Yes, in terms of business opportunity, it's a huge opportunity, and Uruguay has unfortunately has left out, because in Malaysia, I believe in Indonesia as well, and in the region as well, we always import beef from Australia. So beef in Argentina and Uruguay especially is one of the best in the world. So am I right?
Of course you're right.
So this is the best meat, and I hope that this is the cooperation that the area of priority areas that we can cooperate because as mentioned by Ambassador Indonesia just now, halal certification is a high standard, and both Malaysia and Indonesia we are leading halal hub. So halal certification is widely accepted by our country around the world, and so we are more than happy to share our expertise with Uruguay, and we also look forward to work closely to establish the regulatory body here. Thank you.
Thank you. We have one question more.
Welcome, ambassadors. I want to know if your countries gives scholarship to study and to make the cultural exchange possible, and how can we, the students, apply?
Excuse me, about the cultural or which sector?
Exchange program.
Exchange, normal exchange.
Scholarship.
Okay, for scholarship itself, we have, as I mentioned to you, not only Thai government, because I talk as a part of Thai government, we already have yearly training course from the shortened one or the 2 years term, like a postgraduate as well. And also in the level of the universities, individual university in Thailand also offer the scholarship, and I think most of the country of ASEAN as well. Nowadays you can find out, in the internet as well for the exchange scholarship. I think it's a good opportunity now because the COVID situation is much better, and most of the countries start to offer the scholarship again, like Thailand. So because last year we doing only by Zoom, but from this year I think they will come back again to the face-to-face classes and the scholarship. Okay, don't worry. If you want to have some more information, you can get into our website AITC. I think the CEO the gov.tov.th, for example, and as well as you can follow up, in the announcement. Normally we send the requirement to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Uruguay, for the exchange or scholarship. You can also contact them as well. It's a part of Thailand. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry. Okay. For Malaysia, for the scholarship, we have this Malaysian Technical Cooperation Program, and also we're offering scholarship for Uruguay students to study in Malaysia. 100% sponsored by Malaysian government in terms of accommodation, in terms of airfares, in terms of the PDM. So we are more Uruguay. Most students are more than welcome. You're most welcome to offer to accept to apply for the scholarship. But this scholarship is for postgraduate students, and they have several criteria. And for the first start, you have UKM. I think also have offer scholarship to students and Uruguay student here. And of course, you guys are most welcome to study in our country. Thank you.
Yeah, for Vietnam, I think it's on the university basis. That, for example, your university will have the Mercosur chair in the foreign trade. So it will almost automatically have an exchange program. You can go there to study for 1 semester, and one student from the foreign trade university come here to study. So we, the embassy, we encourage that. And not only with the university which has a Mercosur chair, you will have a more agreement with other university to exchange your own student. We don't have the government scholarship, but individual based.
At the moment, we have 3 universities with relations in the ASEAN: Foreign Trade University in Vietnam, UPH in Indonesia, and UKM in Malaysia. We are having conversations with Universidad Ateneo in Philippines, and we are starting also in Thailand. So the opportunity is there. So thank you again. I think we're in time, sorry. Before closing, I want to to thank the presence here of Nuri Bausang, who was ambassador of Uruguay in Malaysia. Thank you, Nuri, for being with us here. Also, we have the General Honorary Consul of Indonesia and Uruguay, Nicolas Potri. Thank you. And also represented some people from ministers, Valeria, Natalia, okay, thank you for being there. And of course, I want to thank the support, the long-standing support of MAC, and thanks Rodolfo Cafaro that's here, also Diego Martinez. Thank you for all the support. It's our partner in the chair. So, ambassadors, I think that was a very good conversation because we know more about ASEAN now. You gave us a lot of advices and messages for the government of Uruguay. I think we must react. Mercosur, but Uruguay also. Maybe we need to start alone. No, but as Mercosur and as Uruguay, we have a lot of work to do. So thank you for visiting the Catholic University. Thank you all for the presence here, and see you next time. Bye-bye. Yes, we need a picture here.